Steve Loshman es un médico psiquiatra de la Harvard Medical School y el autor de una novela que explora el aspecto clínico de lo que películas y ahora series de televisión nos han enseñado a denominar zombies. Desde Boston explicó en tiempo real cómo llegó a escribir The Zombie Autopsies.
Yeah, it was kind of lucky. So the long version is there's a movie theater here in Boston that asks professors in town to speak before they'll show like a popular movie. So they'll show, for example, Star Trek, and they'll have a physicist talk about moving light speed. And they called me and said, would you ever do one? And I said, sure, but only if it's a zombie movie. And I was just messing around. Like, I didn't think they'd take me up on it. And they said, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. Let's do it. And so then I thought, my goodness, I have to take them seriously. So I started thinking, you know, I had just watched Night of the Living Dead, and it had occurred to me that that if you're a doctor, you wouldn't want to blow their heads off. You'd want to treat them. You want to figure out what's making them so sick.
Schlossman llamó a la enfermedad de su novela síndrome atáxico, neurodegenerativo y de deficiencia de la saciedad. Básicamente quiere decir, bueno, que lo explique el médico de Harvard.
First of all, it's a syndrome. And in medicine, whenever you don't know for sure the cause of something, which is the case in the beginning of my book, by the end they know it's a virus, you call it a syndrome, which just means a bunch of symptoms hold together more often than not. And then it's just descriptive. So ataxic is a fancy word for not having good balance. So the way zombies kind of walk with their hands out and you know, tumble from side to side. Neurodegenerative means that the neurons are degenerating, are falling apart, especially the frontal lobe. So the front part of the brain is slowly turning to mush. Satiety is the sense that you're full, you've eaten enough. And so satiety deficiency is the absence of that sensation, and there are certain lesions in the brain that can make you think you're always hungry no matter what, and then it's a syndrome. So it's stumbling, stupid, hungry humanoids, basically. That's what ANSD is.
Su libro examina no solo el aspecto clínico de lo que esta enfermedad le haría al cerebro humano, sino también la dimensión ética de ir por ahí reventando cabezas zombies.
To me, that's what's so interesting about it. So in some ways, writing this, even though it was fun and my tongue's in my cheek, I'm joking around, it's a way of dealing with a lot of really, really intense issues that come up in medicine all the time. When is somebody on the wards so sick that they're kind of as good as dead? Which is an awful question to ask, but we ask it all the time. So I was thinking with zombies, I mean, they're human, or they were once human, and in order for us to give ourselves permission to dispatch them, to either dissect them or study them or kill them, we have to define them as something other than human. So there would have to be a societal decision that basically states they're no longer alive, even though they're clearly walking around, their heart's beating, their lungs are breathing. My zombies are also not like the zombies in the movies. Mine don't rise from the dead. Nothing in medicine does that. So I couldn't create that. But I could say that medically speaking, they're as good as dead. And that's a very controversial issue in medicine. But in the book I wrote, I wanted to sort of play with that idea. So I had all these religious leaders come together and meet with doctors and policymakers and write this treaty that says when you hit stage 4 of this disease, it's appropriate to have funerals, do everything you would do for when someone dies, and then take care of the no longer existing human and call them humanoids.
Aunque la suya es una obra de ficción, necesariamente hace que uno se pregunte, ¿podría ocurrir una emergencia global de dimensiones apocalípticas? Más aún, ¿podríamos hacerle frente?
Yeah, it's a great question. With our increased globalization, there's an increased capacity for novel infectious agents, more often viruses than not, to wander around the world quicker. The chances of a novel infection becoming apocalyptic in scenario, I think, from talking to people I know at the CDC, from talking to my friends here, are pretty slim. I think things could get dark fast, but I think we'd get on top of it fairly quickly too. I think what would most likely be overwhelmed would be our infrastructure, would be our like we can treat folks with horrible illnesses, but if the ICU is full, we can only put so many people in the intensive care units, and depending on the wealth of different nations, they'll have different capacities to handle this stuff. So what would have to happen, in a kind of optimistic view, is national boundaries would have to break down. We don't have any business saying we'll live, but China won't. That doesn't make any sense. If China goes, we go. If we go, China goes. So everyone would have to cooperate. And I think that would happen. I think when we saw the initial fears over H1N1, over the swine flu, the World Health Organization came together very quickly, and nations that normally wouldn't talk to each other were cooperating an awful lot to make sure that that things were in place if that virus ended up being as bad as the worst projections. It turned out not to be. So I can't give you a number percentage for how likely. The last really deadly pandemic was the Spanish flu in the early part of the 20th century. The world wasn't nearly as globalized. Something like 2.3 million people passed away from that. It was awful. We got on top of that even in those much more primitive times. So I think we would do okay.
Para más información visite esta dirección. Yo soy Wilson Vega en Tiempo Real.